I'll say this. We talk about Giannis having certain types of limitations, but we all know that he is a game changer, right? Like when he is on, there's some times where he just he's just unstoppable.
Welcome
to Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. I'm Paul.
I'm Jeremy.
We look at sports from all angles.
What's really going on?
Beyond Sports. Today we'll be talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo. All right. So this is an interesting topic that we want to talk about, right? So me and Jeremy have had a couple conversations recently about Giannis and kind of like thinking about like what is going on with the Bucks. Like if we think about the Bucks history, right? These previous years, the playoffs, man, like they always get close. They always don't get close enough, right? And that's one of the things that's kind of interesting, right? They're always close, but not close enough, right? And I think that that's one of the things that we have to consider with them is what's been holding them back. And now that they've actually got there, like what's holding them back now, right? So quick thing for you. So far with the series, what have you noticed about the two different teams and what has stood out from you?
From what I've noticed so far, I feel like the Suns have a lot more margin for error. Mm-hmm. The Suns can play what feels like any style depending on the matchup. So in this series right now, it's been up and down. The scores haven't been super high, but you can tell it's been up and down kind of pace, and it's just been a lot of missed shots, really. So what the Suns can do is they have a lot of young guys who can run up and down the floor. They have a big man who runs, who can finish. They have a guy in Booker. Booker can score half court, score in transition, whatever needs to be done. So I think they have a lot of ways to score. And what I've noticed is when Milwaukee dominates the game, they end up leading by 5. And that has happened a few times in these first two games. But when the Suns dominate the game, they end up winning by 15. So it's just a different form of dominance. When Milwaukee starts to lead, you can just feel it's not very certain. It's kind of just teetering on the edge. And you just feel like, how can they possibly sustain this? Because their contributions from their team, they just don't get that many. Like if they have their role players that are hitting shots, it doesn't last for very long. Connaughton really has been the one guy that feels like he's been the role player who's been making shots. Chris Middleton has kind of disappeared. Even Lopez is doing okay, but he can't do it enough. So we've seen Giannis come off that injury and be their best player so far. And we've talked about it. I don't think that can work. But we'll get into that later. But just my initial impressions is that the Suns can play a lot of different ways. They have more margin for error. And when they dominate, they end up leading by 15. When Milwaukee dominates, they end up leading by 5.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, right, is that with these two teams, right, one of them, when they get on runs, right, like their runs extend a little bit further, right? The Suns can get on those runs where they have longer sustainable streaks, right? So I think that that's one of the things with the Suns is that they're able to hold that momentum for a longer amount of time. And that's something that Milwaukee has struggled doing, right? Even those times when Milwaukee has gotten close in games, they haven't been able to get close enough, right? Because they get there and they just don't have that endurance, or there's like some little small mental thing, or there's this like little short Chris Paul dude that comes in and just starts slashing them up, right? And I think that one of the other things I like to contribute to just this series that I've noticed is that with the Suns, you get a lot more passing, right? You get a lot more activity. And for that aggressive type of defense that the Bucks play sometimes, if you're aggressive, but you don't stay home at times and they just keep this ball passing time after time, they're going to get easy looks. They're going to get easy shots. And this is something that we've noticed, and we talked about Dante DiVincenzo and what he could have offered for this team. And I think that that's one of the things, again, that they are missing, that another one of those guards, young athletic, that can help out, right? Drew is doing a really good job. But again, it's hard for you guys to kind of like do that thing where you come up, you catch up, you lead, and then you win the games if you don't have everybody on your team on the same page, right? And I feel like that's one of the things that's happening with the Bucks right now, is that their team is just not meshing at the right moments like they needed to. The Suns right now are definitely getting the ball moving, and I think that that's going to be one of the issues that plagues the Bucks the most, right? Is that ball moving and them not being able to to stop anybody's shot, right? Suns keep getting those open shots, right? And that's one of the things that is definitely going to have to change, as well as what you're saying with the Bucks in general, right? So from that point, right, can the Bucks do anything to kind of help out with that type of offensive game that the Suns have, where they're moving the ball, they're constantly getting guys open, there's tons of motions? What can the Bucks do, in your opinion, to kind of slow that down and give themselves a chance? Because, when you said that, one of the things that happens is that when the Suns go on runs, big runs that they get up on. When the Bucks go on runs, they only get those small leads, and then they're just taken away like that. So what do you think the Bucks can do to try to have a chance and salvage this championship that they're down 0-2 at?
I think the Bucks need to make sure that they're putting enough pressure on the ball handler, maybe to kind of disrupt the rhythm. Maybe they try to stick a little bit closer to the players that are on the perimeter that get the ball. Because I've noticed the same thing you've noticed, that there's so many wide open shots. It's not even about contesting the shots. The shots just aren't being contested. They're just wide open. So I think maybe you try to make sure you increase the pressure on the ball and on the players. Maybe that disrupts the rhythm a little bit. But even then, make sure you're just putting a lot more effort into defense. These teams are supposed to be the two best defensive teams left in the playoffs, or the two best defensive teams, period, in the playoffs. And it doesn't feel that way coming from the Bucks. If the Bucks make their reputation on defense, I'm just not seeing it right now. And maybe that's just because the Suns are just that much better offensively and their execution is just that good. But right now, the Bucks are not looking active on defense at all. It looks like the Suns can get any shot they want, and it just depends on if they're going to make it or not. Mm-hmm. Last game they shot 50% from three, so they made the shots.
They did.
And maybe they won't on the road because maybe the role players don't play as well. But yeah, I think they got to try to get a little bit, more physical on defense. Maybe not try to be so finesse, I guess. Just be tougher, I guess. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I like that aggressiveness, right? Like we talk about them, they are trying to jump at stuff and they get thrown off by these passes, right? But what you're saying is that they need to just attack the ball carrier, right? Like maybe they incorporate a little bit more of that press, but Drew's been doing that sometimes. It's just, I think that when you have Chris Paul, right, that understands how to navigate through a lot of different types of defenses, right? That's one of the things about leadership and about his leadership is that he understands what different teams are going to be able to do. And then he also understands if they're trying to do this, what type of matchups can we take advantage of as a team? He gets to his guys in the right position. And then he just, again, they're getting open. They're having open shots. And if you can get your guys in the right position and get these open shots, that's going to be a tough one. What I would say is that I think you just have to, like you said, you have to take somebody out of the game, right? If you can annoy Chris Paul somehow, right, then I think that messes up the whole flow of what the Suns are doing. You still have Devin Booker that's there. Devin Booker's still going to get his. He's always going to light it up. Somebody's just going to have to bite that bullet, right? But if there's going to be some type of trap, some type of two-man type of trap or something, like they're going to have to incorporate something to get the Suns hit, get into the Suns' head, right? And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things going forward. Do you think that trapping CP3 or trapping Booker might be something that could actually help them out a little bit more? I know CP3 is kind of hard to get in that trap and to contain, but do you think that it's even worth it to try that type of technique for the Bucks, especially seeing that there have been a pretty solid defensive team throughout the season and for the past few years?
I think as far as Chris Paul, I think you just keep Holiday on him. You keep a bigger defender on him, and you try to smother him that way. Because the problem with Chris Paul is that as soon as you get him trapped or in an awkward position, he's going to find a way to draw a foul. And he's done that a few times. He's drawn a couple flagrant fouls. He drew a flagrant foul on a regular looking closeout in game one, I think. And that kind of really frustrated me to see that. It was like, you can't do anything on defense if these guys, they're getting flagrant. It's not even just a regular foul now. They're getting flagrants on these things. So it's hard to really just play him anyway because he's going to find a way to draw a foul. So I don't think bringing the trap necessarily is going to help because he's going to find a way to draw a foul. And as far as Booker goes, he does the same thing. The difference is also that Booker can get a shot off, and Booker can get and ones, whether it's from 3 or from 2. So I think Booker would be a better candidate to trap, yes, if you wanted to. I just don't know if that would help. I think you mostly need to play straight up. I just think you have to be tougher and get in the passing lanes, get the ball, and even on offense, try to be a better executing team. One thing that I've noticed that I don't like is, of course, every time I see Giannis shoot a 3, I think that's a bad shot, right? Because there are 2 outcomes from making a shot, taking a 3, obviously. If he takes a 3 and misses it, that's the easiest way to see that that was a bad shot. Because now your team missed a shot, it probably airballs, it's probably out of bounds to the other team. Either way, it's not a good shot when he misses it. When he makes it, it's going to encourage him to take more. So that's still a bad shot in that respect. So I think Giannis stopped taking 3s. Giannis stopped trying to initiate on the offensive end. And this is something we talked about. And this is kind of what made me want to talk about this game.
Yeah.
Because we both had opinions on that. So I'll get into that really quick.
Yes, let's get in the meat of it.
What the problem is, I think, is when Giannis initiates on offense, Giannis only has one move, really. He can do kind of a Euro step thing. He can knock a guy down, and he can try to get a layup. Not very good at finishing through contact, really, as big as he is. He doesn't get a lot of and one finishes. So the likelihood of him having to shoot 2 free throws instead of 1 is really high. And he is a 50% free throw shooter, like right on the dot of 50%. Like he's going to make 1 and miss 1 every trip now.
Yeah.
So him going into the lane, him trying to create is not a good option because he's either going to get fouled or he's going to turn the ball over. And then when you're getting fouled, what I noticed last game, they're trading 1 point per Giannis trip down the court where he makes 1 free throw for basically 3 points. And that's kind of how the offense has been going. Anytime Giannis has the ball, Phoenix is smartly fouling him in the act of shooting. They're not doing like a hack a Giannis kind of thing, right? But they're smartly making sure that any shot he takes is going to be contested so that if he gets fouled, he's going to have to shoot 2. And that's a winning proposition for Phoenix every time. So he gets 1 point per possession, maybe. They're going down hitting a 3. They're probably getting close to 2 points per possession. So the math is easy on their side.
Yeah.
So Giannis as the playmaker and creator, I don't like it. Giannis outside the 3-point line, I don't like it. I think he needs to just be on the block. Either he does his turnaround because he's been working on that. Either he does that, or he gets opportunistic points and he just plays like a kind of a big man who gets rebounds, gets it out, gets tip-ins. Don't run the offense through him and don't run offense for him. And I think that might actually work better.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that I felt as well is that Giannis, for how big he is, can handle the ball fairly good, but he's not a point guard. He's not an NBA point guard, and that's one of the things that you definitely see when he tries to initiate the offense, right? You don't want him initiating your half-court offense, right? Like that's not his thing. And a lot of times what you saw was when he did try to initiate the offense, didn't have anything going and tried to drive, Cam Johnson was right there. He knows his move. He knows his drive, right? Like he knows exactly what he's going to do. He knows when he puts the ball back here, what his next move is, and he just reaches in and grabs it. Either he gets the foul, he gets a jump ball, right? Or he gets a steal. And that's one of the things that's really been bothering Giannis as well, is that they figured him out as a point guard. In a sense, they figured him out as a primary ball handler. They figured him out. And because of that, it limits how effective he can be. And one of the things that I was saying to Jeremy is that I don't think that he needs to be the first option for the Bucks, right? Best player, awesome, right? First option, maybe not, right? Because what that means is that you have to make a plan for this guy to really get him started. And you're trying to do that with having him have the ball in his hands. Now he's trying to make too many decisions instead of just thinking about what he's really good at. And as the playoffs get tougher and tougher and tougher, now the amount of things that he has to contemplate and the amount of things that he has to decide upon, passing it, is this guy open? What's this matchup looking like? What type of zone? Is there a lane right here, right? Can I get my dribble move? Like he doesn't even think about his dribble drive probably for most of the part of the season. He's just like, I can get to the rim. But now with Cam coming up there and just like causing him any type of like hesitation with that, Now it's getting into his head as well, and now he can't even drive. So they're taking away that, and then adding on to that when he does drive, he gets fouled. Now he has to think about, well, if I drive, I might get stripped, I might get a jump ball, I might get it stolen, I might get fouled, and then I got to go to the free throw line. Come on, buddy. He ain't trying to do all that,
Yeah.
So this is one of the things, is that they have to figure out a way to do exactly what you said. Let him get those scavenger points. Once he starts building up that energy and starts getting into that natural zone, right? When he gets in the zone, I think that's a different type of Giannis, though, because now he's not thinking. He's just reacting to whatever happens. And that's when he can dominate. That's when he can get his drive, because he's going to see Cam. He's going to understand that, but it's going to be more of a natural flow. And that's what you have to do with Giannis. You have to have someone else on that team stand up, take control. It needs to be probably Chris Middleton or Brook Lopez, honestly. Drew can do it sometimes if they allow him to do some type of pick and roll type of thing with Brook Lopez. Slow him down, make sure that you're like draining that energy from them so that they're not just running up and down all game long. So they have to incorporate something, but I don't think that Giannis needs to be the primary ball handler, possession in and possession out, because he gets stuck and trapped a lot right now. I don't know if some of that has to deal with his knee, but I still think it's about the way that he's playing and the way that they're trying to win these games. So,
yeah, and they're in a really tough position, because who would be the number one option, right? Like you said, is it going to be Chris Middleton? Did you see Chris Middleton play the last couple games?
Yeah, he looked really, really stagnant, scared.
Yeah.
He didn't know what to do. He's just like,
yeah, he's not going to take over the game. Yeah, he took over one of the games in Atlanta, I believe, or versus Atlanta, and he looked great. He was just hitting everything.
Mm-hmm.
But he essentially is a jump shooter, right? So if it's falling, it's falling, and if it's not, it's not. And that's just the difference. Like, if the shot goes in, it looks great, and you're like, wow, Middleton's killing it tonight. But if it doesn't go in, then he just looks like a guy who's taking too many shots, right? So he's not going to go out and aggressively get his shot. He's not going to look great doing it. So that's your first option other than Giannis. Yeah. Second option, like you said, Brook Lopez maybe. And Brook Lopez can do some good things. He can hit the three. He can get alley-oops. He can get rebounds. But he's not going to get his own shot. And if he's not set up, it's going to be tough for him to score. And Drew Holiday was aggressive last game, and that actually backfired. It's like the more aggressive he was, the less efficient he was. And maybe that'll change at home, but it looked really bad for him, constantly going to the rim and missing so many layups. Like, he wasn't even getting foul calls either. That was the problem, right? So
yeah,
you have Giannis is the guy who can score the most points, right? He has more ways to score than the other guys in a sense, even though he's not a great shooter. He can still get to the line a lot. He can still get alley-oops. He can score in transition. He can do a lot of things, but he's the only one who can score multiple ways, it feels like. And then if you turn it into a transition game that suits Giannis, the Suns are better at that. The Suns are just better in transition. They're better at getting up and down the court. They're better at finishing. They're better at hitting open three-point shots. And then if you slow it down, which I think is what should happen, is it should be slowed down, because at least you eliminate that transition game. And I think that's what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you slow it down, the problem is, where do you get your points in the half court if you're Milwaukee? Because you don't want Giannis handling the ball, getting fouled all the time, missing free throws.
Mm-hmm.
And then the defense of the Suns is going to get in you, and it's going to make you it's going to make it harder for you to hit your shots. They've been doing a really good job of just getting in the lanes and disrupting what Milwaukee's wanted to do. And then, like I said, you end up with Pat Connaughton or PJ Tucker shooting a corner three, which is not a shot that you wanted initially, I'm sure. Like, those guys can hit the three, and PJ Tucker's been really good from the corner in his career.
Yeah.
But that's not the shot that they've wanted. Yeah. So the Suns have done a real good job, I think, of taking them kind of out of their rhythm and limiting the offense that they can get. So where do you go? Are the Suns can beat them in any kind of game, right? That's just the issue. What does Milwaukee do to even win one game in this series? And that's kind of also what I'm wondering. Can they even win one game and then build from there?
I think they can. And I think that just listening to this and understanding what the Bucks need to get back into the series, right? They're going home right now. And I think the biggest thing about them is that their confidence is shot, right? They came to the championship. They've been denied multiple years. They finally got there, and now they're having a struggle, right? Like that mental like transition state activation energy, blah, 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 right? Like that's what they have to get over, right? And until they have enough energy and confidence to get over there, they may not necessarily get to their goals. And as you said, no one really knows exactly what to do to attack the other team on the Bucks when you're looking on the court, right? Mike Butt, right? Like I don't know what he's going to be able to do to counter them, but whatever it is, he has to make sure that his team feels like they're ahead, like they have a chance, right? And I think that that's the biggest thing. They need to know that in these games that they can still compete, and this is going to be their shot when they go back to Milwaukee. They're going to need their fans. They're going to need the players. They're going to need the team. They're going to need everybody to surround or to come around them and just really take their steps to the next level. One thing that I would like to see for the Bucks, right, is when we're talking about them slowing it down and kind of getting more into a situation where they can kind of slow down that transition. Well, with the Bucks, I like to see almost kind of like a 3-man offense, right, with like a little fourth winger, right? So I think that they need Jrue and Giannis. They need to have those two in pick and roll, right? That needs to be one of the ways that they just start out the offense, right? When you're talking about Giannis being able to get these alley-oops, right? When you're talking about him just being able to play natural, as soon as he sets that pick, now his eyes are already up and open and looking at the basket, right? So he already has a mindset. In addition, now you start to get a situation where you're putting Giannis versus Chris Paul, if they switch, right? And now this kind of helps out. Again, you still don't want Giannis dribbling a bunch, but if they switch, now you have a situation where you have Giannis against a smaller person. You can definitely get him on the inside and the post, get the ball into him as well. And then when someone's crashing out, right, this is where that third man comes in. We talked about Brook Lopez. We know that he is, for how slow he is, sometimes he's kind of a slippery player that can get into the lane and get some of those easy points, right? He can do that. He can also hit that corner three, right? That's going to be another thing. So now you have Jrue and Giannis in this pick and roll that helps Jrue slow it down, right? Because he knows how to control the offense. He can slow it down. He's probably, him and T are probably the only two that I'm thinking about right now that really have an idea how to change around the pace of the game for them, right? So they need to have it in Drew's hands to these pick and rolls, get it to Giannis, and then you have Brook Lopez, and maybe over time, Chris Middleton will start to get in there, and now you have another 3-point option where Giannis can still kick it out and maybe get it to them. They need to have some type of wins. They need to slow it down and have success early on. And I think that that's one of the things that I would try to do to incorporate all of these guys and give my team a chance to feel like they're putting together something, like they have a story in this series that they're going along with that can potentially get them a win.
Yeah, and the only other way I think that Milwaukee can compete is injuries. The Suns are losing a guy a game now, so it just if the Bucks extend the series long enough, eventually the Suns are just going to run out of people. It'll be like that Golden State Cleveland series where at some point like Golden State was just like, it's all right, we'll just keep running because eventually they're going to get tired, right? And that was the whole game plan for the entire series, and it worked. Yeah, the first one that they won against Cleveland.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, right? Because we saw how Chris Paul that was it the shoulder or the shoulder, right? We saw that it got injured before. We saw last game there was still maybe a little small aggravation, but maybe that was just because it was warmed up from busting heads. I don't know what it was, right? But that's one of those things. Like you said, you have to keep that in mind. And we saw injuries plague. I don't say plague, I guess, maybe because some teams are probably happy with the results, right? Like, but we've seen injuries play a huge part in the teams that have won in the overall bracket for the NBA playoffs, right? So I think that that's definitely something to look at. So I don't know. What do you think about that type of situation where you do have Jrue and Giannis doing this pick and roll to kind of like start out the offense a little bit more frequently, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I like having the ball in Drew's hands more than Giannis's hands. And I do think that you can also have Chris Middleton set that screen and do it with Chris Middleton too, because you can do kind of a pick and pop with him, right? Because he's going to hit the
If he can
shots.
pop, if he can
Yeah,
pop,
yeah. I mean, he can. I think he can pop. I mean,
pop
he's
off.
he's a 50, 40, 90 guy, so he should be able to hit those shots. And that way,
Shit.
maybe you
Yeah.
get him into a rhythm. Because you were saying it, and it makes so much sense that Milwaukee's not really moving the ball the same way that Phoenix is, right? So if you're not moving the ball, then you're getting a lot of shots off the dribble. And Chris Middleton, he can do that. He can make those shots, but why not make it easier on yourself? Why not get these guys open shots? Why not try to make sure that when the ball hits the guy's hands, he's ready to shoot rather than him having to get his own shot?
Mm-hmm.
And I think doing the pick and roll with Giannis, if you can get alley-oops, if you can get some nice lobs with Giannis too, that's great because Giannis is great on the lob. Like, Giannis isn't that much different than DeAndre Ayton.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is that Ayton's more efficient than Giannis. Giannis can score more, but Ayton is a better free throw shooter. Ayton's a better finisher at the rim, and he stays within himself. Giannis won 2 MVPs, so you can't tell him nothing, right? Like, that's just what it is. But I think if he kind of reined it in and tried to play within himself and maybe toned down his role, maybe played more like Ayton, maybe you'd have a little bit more success. Because if you're comparing teams, right?
Yeah.
Who is, you have the Chris Middleton and his counterpart is Devin Booker. I was thinking about that just now. Like, that's not a great matchup for Milwaukee in terms of the comparison, because Devin Booker can easily put up 30. He puts up 30 in a way that you didn't realize he had 30 points. He had a quiet 30, right? Like when Chris Paul scored 30 the other night, it was huge. But Devin Booker scored like 27, and he had a bad game. And he comes back, and he puts up 30. So that matchup right there is easily won by the Suns. The Chris Paul-Drew Holiday matchup, if you're comparing point guards, Chris Paul is way more impactful so far than Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday can do those same things. Drew Holiday can even lock down Chris Paul if he puts his effort on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
But he just hasn't so far, right?
I mean, yeah, he's tried, man. He's tried, and he's but again, like Drew. One thing I like about Drew Holiday is that he does play like very close defense, right? He knows how to shadow, right? He knows how to shadow a guy really well. But there's the thing is that when Chris Paul has these little bitty small movements, right? They open up so much, right? Because most guys you can shadow them, and if they're bringing the ball here, you know where they're going to try to go to, right? Chris Paul will do this and then do some other stuff, bring it back, find somebody, whatever, right? Like he has so many different moves to counter different type of defensive players, right? And like I said, that's why I feel like you have to agitate him the most, because as long as he's seeing stuff, as long as he's flowing, then it's going to be hard. So if you can get him to make some little mental mistakes, right? Get some turnovers, some unforced turnovers, and start to get into his head. Now you start to make him think a little bit more as well, right? So yeah, I think that's one of those things. And then one quick thing, I did like what you were talking about with Chris Middleton. I'd say with Chris Middleton, I might even try some of those double screens, right? Or just something to keep Devin Booker moving, right? To make him spend a lot of his energy on the defensive, the defensive end of the ball, trying to fight through these picks, right? Like Brook Lopez is a big dude, man, and I think that's one of those things as well, right? Giannis is a big dude. And if you're trying to get around these guys, it's going to be hard. PJ Tucker is a wide dude. You know what I mean? So again, you have to force these smaller offensive players and these smaller guys that are on the Suns to exert their energy in ways that is not going to help them on the offensive end, because that's where they're really killing them at, is on the offensive end, because what the Bucks have shown is that they can't cut into leads. So they need to make sure that those leads don't get too far away, right? And guys can't do that if they don't have the energy to really make those shots, So I think that's a very interesting point with what you said with Chris Middleton. So it is going to be interesting to see how they get involved, and that's one of the things that I'll be looking at for the game tonight as well.
I think it's interesting in general at kind of the pace of this compared to, say, like finals, in the 90s, 2000s.
Yeah.
Like the scoring is low compared to what it's been in previous rounds. But when you look at the type of games these games have been so far, it's such a finesse game that even when they call fouls, they're not like physical type fouls. You know what I mean? Like you could have a game like some of those Nets games versus the Bucks were kind of more physical and slow and choppier, more what you would expect to see back, in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
It's just interesting how different the games are because the games are so up tempo and they're so fast paced and they're so finesse that it actually isn't a better product to me. Like it's nice to see guys hit threes every time they shoot the ball. It's nice to see how skilled they are and how talented they are, and they have, the freedom of motion and all that stuff. But I think you're kind of lacking the competition. I just feel like there's a little bit of competitive factor that's not there when the game is so finesse, when people are playing for fouls rather than playing to score points or get their guys open. Like you were just talking about Chris Paul. And that's kind of why Chris Paul is so hard to defend, because Chris Paul can draw a foul in any situation. And he did the other night one of those things that Trae Young does. He was leading the break. I think he was in front of Giannis. And then he had an open layup, and he just decided to slow up and let Giannis run over him for a foul instead of just go for the layup. Either way,
I remember that play. Yeah.
What kind of sense does it make, right? Like that to me is not entertaining. It's not. I can't root for that. And then another thing, you're talking about the Bucks being close. The Bucks were within 6 maybe one time in the last game, and they were just shooting threes, right? They did not try to get a layup. They did not try to get a shot going to the rim. They missed a couple threes, and then they pretty much weren't in the game anymore. There's kind of this stubbornness, like the analytics, the shooting threes or layups thing. It kind of took away smart basketball plays. It kind of took away getting the shot that you can get and making it. And I know Middleton and Booker both are, and Chris Paul for that matter, are all kind of mid-range specialists. So it's not gone, but it's just rarer that you see it, right? You don't see a lot of people doing that. And maybe the Bucks, when you chisel down a lead from 15 down to like 3, you get like one chance to tie the game. You get like one chance to get that. And if you miss it, it's gone, right? You've seen this over and over again. When a team exerts that much effort, if they can't tie it, if they can't take the lead, then that opportunity is gone. And when you don't make smart decisions because you're sticking to shooting 3-pointers only, and you have guys who aren't great 3-point shooters taking those shots, you lose that, right? And I just feel like sometimes the product is not as fun to watch when you're only getting this one type of basketball and you don't have like that competitive fire. Like these teams don't dislike each other. These teams aren't upset with each other.
Yeah, I think that one thing to remember with the NBA, right, especially when we're talking about the competitiveness and we're talking about the fouling and the searching for fouls, right? Like that wasn't it wasn't the same way as what it was before, right? And what I say about that is that the NBA is a game. It's a business with different types of rules, just like any other business. And like John said, right, a long time ago, right, he has that mindset of he wants to take advantage of any type of loophole that he can utilize to win. And that's the same thing that I feel like Chris Paul is doing. By the way, we're talking about John, who actually showed up on one of our episodes earlier last year, when we were talking about soccer in the U.S. and where that's going to go to, right? So bringing that in there. But in addition, this is how the game has evolved, right? One of the things that we saw before is that it was harder for some of these smaller guards to still have an inside game against these bigger guys, right? And Chris Paul is basically showing, like, this is what we have to do. Well, if he's going to the lane, and I think that on that play, Chris Paul actually almost tripped a little bit. He slid, and then when he slid, he just kind of slowed down his momentum while he was in front of Giannis, and Giannis couldn't slow down, right? Because what is Chris Paul doing? He's thinking about Giannis' center of gravity. He knows that it's higher than his. If he gets low and slows down, and Giannis is right on top trying to block it, well, he can't control himself. It's just another way to get a guy off balance, right? And now he's getting him off balance into a foul. Before, a lot of the fouls might have been like people typically try to get fouls while they were driving in, right? Contested shot type fouls, you know what I mean? And then that progressed to people with the pump fake and then trying to jump into the air and get these types of fouls. And now what they're doing is they're slowing down and transitioning and trying to get these type of fouls. Well, it's just a part of the game because what do? They get free throws. You know who shouldn't try that out? Giannis, because he can't hit free throws, you know, but everybody else should like incorporate some of the things that they're doing as well, right? Drew Holiday is a really crafty point guard that has very good stop and start ability. He can see a lot of guys. He can make a lot of different type of difficult passes, but it does take him a little bit of time to get confident and get into his game. But when he gets that flow, he's good. So I think that right now, actually, I'll ask you, and maybe that's a good kind of thing to kind of start coming down from. So how do you expect and anticipate this next game to go? What types of things are you looking forward to see from both teams, and what do both teams need to win?
I think that these games are going to be tempo contests. I think the Suns have their tempo. They know that they can win if they speed it up and get in transition. I think the Bucks understand that they cannot run with the Suns, so they're going to need to slow it down. So I hope to see that the Bucks slow it down, try to execute in the half court, try to make it a little bit muddier of a game, try to make it more physical, and try to use their kind of size and half court execution in order to win, and maybe just disrupt the Suns' youth and athleticism. So I hope to see that. What I expect to see is that the Bucks are going to come out and they're going to be able to take a lead because they have all the energy and the emotion from the home court. But I don't expect them to be able to keep the lead. And if they're leading at halftime and if they're leading into the third quarter, I don't expect that to last. And I expect the Suns to win and take a 3-0 lead. But I expect this to be the closest game that we've had so far, where the Suns will chip away at the lead and then eventually win down the stretch with better execution, with better players and more options on the offensive end. So I think it'll be more competitive. I think it'll be more energetic, but I think the Suns will figure out how to win and it'll be 3-0.
Yeah, I think that the game's going to be close. I think that in the end, let's see. Yeah, I think the Bucks go up early, and then I think that they like have like a really solid lead by halftime. I think that third, I think they might even expand on that lead. I think the fourth, though, is going to start to get tight. I feel like the Suns are going to start to make a run. And then in those final moments is going to be where that pivotal thing is, right? So I feel like this next game, those last like 7 minutes are really going to decide it. But it's going to be because the Suns are going to be trying to make that run to catch up with the Bucks. I think the Bucks can still win this next game. And if they are able to win it in a fashion that doesn't seem like they just barely squeak to a win, right? Like if they can do that, then they may have something that they can utilize for the rest of the playoffs, right? Like I'll say this. We talk about Giannis having certain types of limitations, but we all know that he is a game changer, right? Like when he is on, there's some times where he just can, he's just unstoppable, right? And I think that that's where they need to get him to, is to that point where he's just unstoppable, making plays everywhere, grabbing rebounds out the air, and then just running down in transition, right? Like that's what you want. And that's another point that we didn't really talk about. One of Giannis's biggest strengths is that transition game. And if you have guys that are just making shots at high efficiencies, then he doesn't have, it takes away a lot more of that transition, right? He's not getting the rebounds. He's not being able to just push the ball like his teammates aren't able to push the ball, where he's running and getting those transition oops or transition dunks. And again, and this is another reason why they have to really make sure that they are getting in the face of the Suns, because if they don't do that, it's just going to be a hard thing for them to do, a hard series for them to win. So
who wins?
I'll go with the Ucks.
You don't mean it. You don't even mean it. You don't even mean it.
Well, I think the fans win out, but the fans do win. But no, I say I'll give this one to the Bucks. I feel like the Bucks, they needed that refresh, right? They've seen what they could do for 2 games so far. they're going back home. They've had the plane ride. They've had a little bit of time to rest and relax. Now it's going to be the time where they can put that stuff together, come up with a solid game plan. And one thing that's going to help them out is not playing against the Suns fans. The fans for the Suns have been wowed, amazingly wowed, right? This is the type of energy that you want in the NBA playoffs from your fans. And whether they're the 6th, the 7th, the millionth man, whatever it is, they are doing their job, whether it's being loud, cheering, giving that excess energy, or just getting in the mind of the Bucks, and I think that that's one of the things that's going to help them out as well. That those Bucks fans are going to come out as well. And I think that that's going to be one of those things that kind of helps them turn the tide of what's going on with this series. If they ever have a chance, it's going to be tonight.
I do think that that is a good point, that the home court will make a huge difference. And I don't want to be super reactionary just because, the home team winning both of its games is supposed to happen, right? So, it shouldn't be that we say all is lost for the Bucks because they haven't had a chance to make their opening statement. But I do think from what you see, I think there is things that you can kind of read into, right? Like that's kind of what you have to do. And when I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about, you said there's going to be a pivotal moment in the game. Which team do I have more faith in that will hit a big shot in a pivotal moment? To me, I'm going to say, hey, give the ball to Devin Booker. He's going to make the shot. I don't care where the shot is coming from. I don't care who's guarding him. I have faith that he's going to hit a pivotal shot. And if he doesn't hit that shot, they're going to find a way to get it to Ayton. They're going to find a way to get it. Maybe Chris Paul hits the shot. There's so many people on that team, even Cam Johnson, like you said, Mikal Bridges. There's so many people on that team that you feel like can hit a big shot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Bucks, they have one guy that can hit a big shot in Chris Middleton, but it ain't good. The odds aren't good for him to do that, right? Like he had a big shot against was it Brooklyn? He had a buzzer beater or potential buzzer beater earlier in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
But like that's not a shot you expect him to make repeatedly. You don't have that much confidence that he makes it. So if it gets tight and one of these teams has a shot to win the game, who are you going to put your money on? I'm going to put my money on the Suns every time.
Yeah. And I think that's, like you said, the critical point, the critical moment we've already defined is that it's going to be the Suns scoring on offense and the Bucks on defense, right? I don't feel like it's going to be the other way around because even if the Bucks make a critical offensive play, they got to make another and they got to make another. And that's the thing about them is that it's hard for them to continue to make that offensive side efficient, right? And I think that for them, their biggest thing is going to be that defensive intensity, right? And that's going to be the critical point. How does the offense for the Suns go against that defense for the Bucks in that critical moment? Because that's what's going to decide this game. Is that from my standpoint, And I think the Bucks can do it, but it's going to be hard. When you were talking about those crucial shots, right? Like the Bucks don't really have too many people that can make that type of shot, right? But for the Suns, it's weird because when the big shots for the Bucks and the big shots for the Suns, they're not big shots. They're just shots, right? Because they're so comfortable in their mindset that I can make this. I have the freedom to take an open shot, and I know that I can hit it because I've been busting this team up the whole playoffs, right? So when you're talking about Mikal Bridges being in the corner, getting his three, it's annoying, right? It's annoying for the Bucks to see that anybody on the Suns can be a threat from three. And that's why they keep jumping all over the place. So maybe that is one of the things, right? Maybe they do have to stay home for a certain amount of time, but when certain matches are on the floor, that's when they try to start to trap. That's when they start to try to, or not trap necessarily, but get a lot more pressure on some of these guys, because if they don't, and they're just passing it from wing to wing to wing 50 times per possession, it's going to be hard because somebody's going to be able to make a shot. If it's not this time, it's going to be the next time. We know that because they're shooting 50%, and that's what really wow. So
that's how math works.
Yeah.
And so I think that what really gets me is like if I'm rooting against the Suns
Mhm,
and there's like a minute left, I
mhm.
don't want to see the ball in Devin Booker's hands. That's the one guy that I feel like there's no moment too big at this point, right? It doesn't matter if it's going to be a three, if it's going to be a two, if it's going to be free throws, which he doesn't miss either. It doesn't matter. The guy is so good at scoring. He's going to put the ball in, and there is no pressure. Doesn't matter what score, what the time is on the clock, and
Yeah.
that's terrifying as a person who's rooting for anyone that's playing the Suns, right? Like I don't know. There's a couple games in this postseason where it was the clock was running down and like Booker had the ball. I'm like, this game's over, man. Their Suns are going to win. It's just that's just it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be one of those situations. And like you said, Devin Booker, it's interesting because we're talking about players and spotlight players, right? Devin Booker's definitely one, and Giannis is definitely one. Chris Paul's definitely one, right? Like Chris Paul is showing that he can still get it done at whatever age, right? He's the third player, 36 or older to score 30 points or something, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so again, he's showing that he can still get these things done, which is amazing because he's out there with a lot younger guys. Devin Booker has a storyline where he's coming into his own and becoming one of the best players in the NBA, right? Just remember he got snubbed from All-Star. What was it, last year, right? He got snubbed from All-Star game last year. They didn't make the playoffs either. Like people were just kind of like, well, what's going on? Now he's just came out and just showed that he can be a leader. And then on the other end, we have Giannis, right? And it's almost the opposite, right? There's so many questions about Giannis's game and where he goes from here. I think that for Giannis, this playoff is showing more teams that he can still score, but you can still make it so that their team is not as efficient, depending on what you allow him to do, right? And I think that Cam, like I said, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, all these guys that are just helping out in a sense are what is really taking the Suns to the next level. And what Cam is doing with Giannis, just to be able to say, I don't have to worry about him half of the time, it's huge. One thing that I am interested to see, and I thought that this would be a cool kind of thing that we can probably maybe make one of the last few topics is with Giannis. I'm interested to see what his old man game is going to look like. Like, where does he progress from here, right? Because he's still going to have some type of athleticism, but he's not going to be as quick, right? He's not going to have these different types of things. So how does his game progress? He's still fairly young, right? But where does his game progress? Because at a certain point in time, we can see what happened with Chris Paul's game, right? We can see what happened with LeBron's game. We can see what happened with Kobe's, with KG, right? All these great players have had some type of transition where they were able to have a really good second part of their career by knowing how to utilize different things using that old man strength. So what's going to happen with Giannis? Is Giannis going to turn into a Roy Hibbert? Not in that sense, but is his game just going to get wiped out of the NBA because teams understand how to go against him? And even if he's getting his stuff, is this team ever going to have a chance to win another championship if they don't do it this year?
Number one, real quick, we never even talked about Jay Crowder, which I think is just crazy. That just adds to the depth argument, that the Suns have. Like, we didn't even talk about him. About Giannis, I think this was kind of something I was thinking about too, and it kind of goes together. Because my question was, are they overachieving? Is the Bucks team overachieving? Because if they don't have another chance to win a championship, it's probably for that reason that we look up and down the roster and we say they're good players, but if they don't have anyone that we can depend on, that we feel comfortable thinking that person's going to hit a game-winning shot, if they don't have a go-to offensive guy who doesn't have problems making free throws or doesn't have other holes in his game, like this team is overachieving, I think. So I think you got to give them props at least. Like, people say that Coach Bud is a bad coach. Maybe Coach Bud is an excellent coach. Maybe he's always been overachieving. Maybe he's had teams that he's brought to the number one seed that aren't even built in a way that can win a championship. Like, he's gotten Giannis to be MVP, and Giannis clearly is lacking in his game in a way that other MVPs probably haven't been.
That's a good point.
Maybe they've been overachieving. And so Maybe this is their best shot because they're not really a championship level roster to begin with. And
Yeah.
as far as Giannis's old man game, if Giannis can just do more of the back to the basket game, if Giannis can stop trying to dribble and cross people up, and he can just focus on what he's good at, being finishing around the basket and being large, I think that's a good thing. He might even bulk up even more. Like he's very muscular now. Maybe he bulks up even more. Maybe he goes from young Shaq to old Shaq. You know what I mean? Maybe like you, because Shaq wasn't that much different in a sense than Giannis. Like Giannis is obviously better at putting the ball on the floor. Giannis loves running up and down, but Shaq used to run up and down. Shaq would, catch alley-oops and stuff in transition, and Shaq was running and diving and all that stuff. Maybe Giannis turns into Shaq, except, maybe, I don't know. The free throw percentages are probably comparable, right? He just needs that little baby hook.
Yeah, he's gonna have to do
maybe he turns into Shaq.
Yeah, maybe he does. Maybe he turns into a small forward version of Shaq, which is Zion Williams, but but a taller version, right?
Yeah, he's legit center type size though, right? Like the transition for him to be a center to just be a pure low post guy isn't that hard. Zion Williamson can't be that necessarily because of his height, I don't think.
Yeah. Speaking of Zion, I just thought about this because we're talking about how Shaq exploded or whatever, how Giannis could. I'm just thinking if Zion did, man, that would be like the roundest, biggest like dude ever playing basketball, just jumping over everybody. Like, it's interesting because I was like, dang, reminded me of was it Robert Tractor Trailer?
Yeah.
Just big, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just out there. So I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah, Escalade. Yeah. So one thing that I'll just throw in there about Giannis is it's for him. I think he really needs to develop some type of consistent shot from somewhere, right? If it's a consistent corner three, if it's top of the key, right? That's going to be one of those things. And I do think that this might be an interesting off season for him because he's worked on different parts of his game. He's worked on his ball handling, which has improved vastly. He's worked on his driving ability, which has improved. His defense, which has improved. His shooting, one of the things is that he changed his shot early on. And before, it used to look a lot better.
It's a smooth shot.
And I don't know who switched it up and why it hasn't tried to go back or if it's too invested. But I feel like what he's doing right now and is whoever he's worked with, they've told him to try to get more spin on the ball. So now he's forcing it. Like I'll see him like shoot and then he'll try to he'll do something like this.
It's just that hitch in this shot, right?
Yeah.
There's not a flow to it.
There's just it's just not natural. It's just and then his follow through is just not natural either on his free throws. Like if you see him, it's different every time. And that's one of the reasons why he's having so many issues. And again, this is going to be something that he has to work on. And if he can develop some type of okayly consistent shot where he just has that spot where he's waiting, awesome. But right now, that's definitely a part of his game that who knows if it'll ever improve. I think him and Ben Simmons needs to just practice shots all summer long.
I think if he could just shoot free throws up to 75%, if he could just get his free throws up, he would be a lot more dangerous because people wouldn't be as happy to foul him.
Yeah.
Right. And there's got to be something psychological to where if I let's say I'm a 60% shooter from anywhere on the floor. If the ones that I make are swishes, but the ones that I miss rattle in and out, that's a different kind of thing than if the ones that I miss are air balls, right? I just feel like airballing a shot, like the percentages are what they are. A 40% free throws, 40% 3-point shooter only makes a certain amount, misses a certain amount. But if those misses are all air balls, like that's got to be something, right? You can't miss that poorly and then have the confidence. But I think only Luka can do that, right?
Luka has say Carmelo, but yeah.
Maybe so, yeah. But I feel like missing close is also important. And Giannis airballs so many free throws and so many threes. I feel like that. I don't know what that does to you or what that indicates, but that means something to me. Like if a guy only shoots a certain percentage, but his misses are good misses, as opposed to those just terrible looking airballs, like I have more faith in that shot. But in any case, if he can shoot like 60 to 70% free throws, he just moves that 3-point percentage up. He's going to be a lot more dangerous, right? He's going to be people are going to be a lot less likely to foul him. Like, Kevin Durant shoots 90% free throws.
Yeah,
80 to 90, somewhere in between 80 and 90. Like, he's big, but he shoots free throws really well. It's not crazy. It's not impossible to be 7 feet tall and to shoot 80% free throw. So he can do it, but I know it's going to take a reworking of everything, but maybe that's the one thing he needs to focus on in the offseason. Just shoot a bunch of free throws, just work on that, or whatever needs to be done to get the free throw percentage up. And then now he drives and gets fouled. He's not worried about it. He's okay with being in the game at the end of the game. He's attacking at the end of the game because he's not afraid of having to go to the line, It just changes everything. And the other shots, whatever, don't take any threes ever again. Who cares? But just make the free throws and you'll make up for those points.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing with the playoffs, especially the NBA Finals, that you find out is it's where the little things really show up, right? Because if you don't have those little things, if you're just good at dribbling past guys that are playing subpar defense, but now you have to dribble against guys when they're playing aggressive defense, and you can't do that, it's going to show. If you can't make free throws in clutch moments, well, people are going to take advantage of any opportunity that they can get ahead of you, right? And that's what we see. Like, who has a problem with fouling Giannis? Nobody, right? But you better make it a problem. If Giannis is going to be fouled and he's not going to make his free throws, and I'll end on this, and then I'll throw in one cool little subtopic after this. But if Giannis can't make his free throws, but he's going to get fouled, you better put him against somebody that you need them to take a foul, right? Like, put him against Devin Booker, right? This is where that pick and roll type of thing can help out, because now you have somebody that you don't want fouling him trying to foul him, And I think that's one of the ways that you can kind of counter that as well. Make what the Suns are trying to do into something that is still beneficial from you in the long run, even if your guy can't make the free throws, right? So I think that's one of the things. But again, the playoffs really show what guys do really well and where the little small things are that need to be fixed. So yeah, so that's my take on that.
What's your little tiny thing?
All right, so like my little tiny thing is, what I think? I think it might be the shoes. I think that also Giannis should have tried out for the cast of Space Jam 2 because he needed to get something from the Monstars. Maybe they have something that can help him out. There needs to be something extra special in the water that helps him out, because right now he's struggling and he needs a little bit more support. So,
I was thinking about Space Jam earlier because you were talking about Zion Williamson getting bigger, and it made me think of he would be like the Charles Barkley Monstar, that big round guy. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah,
that would be Zion if he put on more weight.
It's interesting when you said Charles Barkley. I was actually thinking about Charles Barkley earlier, and I was like, Zion needs to work with Charles Barkley a little bit. Like, I think that would be a good type of like pairing relationship, like different type of guys, different type of bodies. But Charles understood that people were going to try to like attack him. He understood how people were going to try to be very physical, and he had to like help out his team. Charles, definitely different type of player, but I feel like Giannis might be able to learn some stuff from them. Just the mindset and the way that they go. Charles said some crazy stuff, but he was an amazing basketball player. Yeah. Especially for just being just amazing basketball player, I'll just say. So
yeah, for being an undersized guy, it's just, you can tell with his commentary, his type of attitude that he had, which is like he didn't care about anybody.
Yeah.
And he didn't care what you thought about him. He didn't care what you said. He just seemed like a real competitive guy and also just kind of mean. You know what I mean? So that helps when you're mean, but you're also just strong. You know what I'm saying? And like, you got that weight behind you. It helps a lot.
Yeah, and Giannis is that he's gonna be like, Giannis, why you let these people keep bothering you? Like, let them go, man. But yeah, like Charles Barkley, man. I think that's maybe that's the thing. Giannis, he doesn't play with the mean streak. He like has a mean face that he'll show sometimes, But remember when he was playing against KD, he's like, he's the best in the world. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have that mean streak.
Yeah.
And Chris Paul.
Nobody does, though, man.
Well,
Nobody
even,
does anymore.
Oh, yeah, they do. Dylan Brooks, bruh. I'm telling you.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's see Dylan Brooks there. I feel that. Let's see. Let's see what he can do with it. Because I know you just bringing up Chris Paul. I don't think Chris Paul is mean in that same way, right? But Chris Paul toes the line, right? What's the difference between Chris Paul and Patrick Beverley is the question.
Well, no. So I'll say this. Chris Paul is mean in nature, right? In the focus, right? Like he doesn't need to be mean because he can be focused, right? Like he gets his energy from focus, right? And his focus is like, I'm going to tear you apart, right? Like it's not, I'm going to tear you. It's like, I'm going to tear you apart inch by inch, just move by move. And then.
Yeah. And then maybe hit you in the nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when I go up, I'm going to flop like this and get 2 fouls called at the same time just in the air just because
now they got to figure out who got the foul.
So, yeah. So it's like what Chris Paul does is he knows that there's something that he can use to crush the other team. Giannis, I don't ever see him looking like I know what I can use to crush the other team. It's just like I'm just gonna do. I'm gonna try to drive. I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna try to dunk. But again, it's just like because the lane is there. But it's not like I'm gonna target and find a guy that I can take advantage of and make his life miserable.
Yeah,
that's what I need Giannis to do. Yeah, because that is what's gonna rip that happiness and that joy away from those Suns and make them realize that they're in a playoff game series. And this is actually a series. Because if they don't, the Suns just look happy, man. Like they look like they're on vacation. Like that's what they're
enjoying themselves, man. They're trying to give their leader a championship, and they got to go to Milwaukee to do it. But that's cool. They'll do it. Yeah, they'll be on vacation in Milwaukee.
Yeah, and they ain't tripping.
Another thing that I was thinking of though, so going off of how it seems like players are nice and how there's not really many mean players. Have you noticed though, this is a good thing, how polished NBA players are now? All of them know how professional that they are. All of them at the mic are just so well polished. I just feel like compared to a generation ago, compared to 2 generations ago, these guys are savvy. They're polished. They understand how to be at the mic. They understand how to be at press conferences. They're really good at measuring their responses. They all sound thoughtful and intelligent. This ain't that same, like, you can't say these guys are dumb jocks. You can't say these guys are from poor neighborhoods or whatever. They don't sound like it, right? No matter what their background is, they all sound polished. To me, it's amazing. Like when I just hear any random basketball player that I've never heard before, I'm always surprised at how polished they all are. Like I heard like John Collins the other day. Every time I see him, I'm just like, I keep forgetting how thoughtful and just like intelligent he is. And you can't see that off of, it's just a basketball game, right? Like when a guy is just catching a bunch of alley-oops and dunking on guys and mean mugging, you don't know that. But like get them all at a mic, they're all polished. They all know. It's like they've all been training for this. And maybe you don't make it to the NBA anymore if you aren't that. I'm not sure. But it just feels different, right? It just feels way different than like any of these guys now can go behind the mic. Whereas before, those guys that are still hanging on from the 90s, you had to be a special player in order to get the chance to be behind the mic. But now anybody can because they're all so polished before they even get there. To me, it's like it's just a whole different thing. It's a new world. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you said a lot of this stuff goes from these guys that are in the NBA now, right? They played in these AAU tournaments. They had interviews when they were in middle school and high school and stuff and college. Like they're so well-rounded in a sense because it's a business at an early age now compared to how it was before. It's so much of a business and they understand that business part about it. So they can always they have to be polished, right? Like guys are losing money from endorsements from not being polished, right? Like you are your name, your image, and your likeness, right? Like you are that. And it's just on a bigger scale now. And these guys understand it. They understand that every time that you're in front of a camera is an opportunity for you now to get more endorsements, to sell yourself to a new media, a new market, right? And I think that that's one of the things that we start to see is that these guys are becoming their own businesses, right? And I think that that's one of the cool things about the NBA is that it's showing a lot of people that you can have good conversations, you can do all these things, and you can still make money and be yourself. And I think that that's still a really good point. So yeah, man, it's different. When you said that, it made me think about remember watching oh dang it, why am I forgetting the name? The Michael Jordan documentary.
Mm-hmm. Last Dance.
Yeah, Last Dance. I was like, one will ride. I was like, I don't know, tripping. Last Dance, right? So remember watching that and seeing when Michael Jordan came out and how he talked then compared to when he's talking at the end, right? Like,
he was raw.
Two different types of things, right?
Yeah.
His was like that. There was another guy that I was thinking about that was a similar type. I feel like Magic Johnson always was kind of like that show or whatever. So he kind of had a little bit more maybe of this like talking type of stuff, but that confidence definitely built. But yeah, like you're saying, Michael Jordan was the education, the way that they went about it, like that transition from really being in the camera, I think is one of the things that transitioned people to always knowing how to talk when they get interviewed and being able to put together really creative, unique, and individual thoughts that express their opinions and really well, so yeah, definitely, man. All right, man. Any other last thoughts that you wanted to throw out there?
No, we had the first African American spelling bee champion, and she's an athlete, so interesting. Her story seems to be really interesting because her last name is Avant-Garde, which is not her birth last name. She seems like her dad has invested a lot into making her into a brand herself. And his last name is something interesting that I can't remember, but it doesn't look like a normal last name. Like he changed his last name too. That's going to be an interesting thing to see as to what that particular athlete speller can become, what she can do with herself.
Yeah. I was thinking that also. I was like, it's interesting to see, like I said, because of media, it allows us to see people at all different ages that are successful in different ventures, right? And I think that that's a really cool thing because some people, like some players, and we haven't really talked too much about the NILs, right? But some people may peak at their athletic performance when they're younger or when they're in high school or when they're in college. You know what I mean? Maybe they don't make it to the next level. And now we're having the situation where people that at any age can still make decent amounts of profits, maybe lots of profit without being professional athletes. And I think that that's a really cool area. And with her, I know that there's going to be so many different opportunities, but who knows what the world holds, and it's a really cool thing because I hopefully we can follow her story from a distance and still let her have her childhood. Right.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting to see where she goes, because I think a lot of people are very excited about some of the things that she's done so far, especially on the court, man. She is a hooper, bro.
She got Guinness World Records.
She got game. She got game. So I don't know if she ends up in the WNBA. I don't even know if that's the route that she wants to go. And if she doesn't, hey, all power to her. But she is she's nice. So yeah, so shout out. See.
Yeah, I think that's all I got.
I think for me, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for voting for us, by the way, for our theme song. We made it through the first round, and the second round just closed yesterday. So we'll find out, I think, next week.
Hopefully so. Yeah. I mean, I know the episode will post on next Wednesday. I don't know if they're going to tell us beforehand or not, because I learned about us making the 32 round like 3 days before. So I don't know, maybe if I haven't heard anything, that means we didn't win, but hey, it's been a good ride. Like I said, I didn't expect us to make it to round 2, because like I said, the song, I just cut up with some of the stuff we were saying over a beat that I had made, I don't know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago at this point. I mean, so it's just a thing that I did that helped us get our podcast out, and it's fun to put it out there and just to see. So thanks everybody for voting, and especially if you voted 50 times. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Check us out on if we do make the next round, make sure you guys vote. It'll be through Pod Jerky. So again, thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys for listening to us. We really appreciate it. With that being said, this is Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. I am Paul.
I am Jeremy.
Thank you guys, and have an awesome weekend. Enjoy that Bucks Suns game, and let's see what happens. So,
Yep,
all right, man. See ya. Bye.